Stop trying to like network, hit and quit. Don't think we're going to have one conversation and you're going to get everything out of me and you're going to be able to use me to springboard to your next thing. I'm not that easy. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Care to Elaborate with Taylor and Travarus. I am Travarus, one of your hosts, and I'm here with...
The lovely Taylor Falls.
See, I love when you give yourself affirmations. I think we should make that a daily practice.
Right.
Before we dive into how we're doing, we're going to talk about networking. I know a few of you have requested a networking conversation. I think everybody can always use more conversations around networking. We're going to talk about how to build a connection, how do you sustain that connection, and what happens when you try to relocate based on your job, and how do you build again. Before we get there, Taylor, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's a little rainy outside. It's giving a little sad outside, but that is not how I feel inside today. So thank goodness for that. Okay.
Talk about it.
So I'm feeling great. Y'all know I got my hair done again. Is it giving? Is it
Now
giving?
you got
Okay.
it. You got it.
Travaris, how are you doing?
I'm feeling great. Part of the reason that we were talking about before we began to record was affirmations, how we want to start the year, things that we want to, begin to write on the list. We can cross off the list. I'm feeling real good about that. I think that the top of this year, a lot of change, which is pretty standard in my life at this point. But I wasn't in my bag for real. My mantra is happen to life, don't let life happen to you, as much as you can. I was letting life happen to me. But I think since September, I put my foot on the gas and I want to continue to carry that through to the next year.
Period. He going full speed ahead, y'all. 80 miles an hour.
Got to. You got to be number one grateful. You also got to stay prayed up. And you also got to remain ambitious because that ambition helps you to springboard to that next thing.
And ambition can be hard, especially when you are fighting to just complete day-to-day tasks and live daily life in a way that is not draining. But I always say, take one step every day. My dad was telling me it's like set one main goal for every day. And as long as you accomplish that one thing, whether it's getting out of bed or, turning in your project or whatever the case may be, you made some progress. So that's kind of how I'm keeping my ambition and my resilience up, because you're right, it's hard.
It is. But also, I like that because when people, I remember hearing this when I was playing sports, it's like get 1% better every day. Because when you can't see the horizon, you have to just see like the next step or
Right.
look at what's in front of you. And I think that's a good segue to our actual topic today, is because when you have a goal to want to either pivot into a new industry or you want to accomplish a goal that requires people and know-how and trying to crack the code, network is a very vital skill set that you have to get better at in order for you to transition to that next level. So, Taylor, you want to give it's a very quick understanding of what you view networking as?
I had a conversation with someone about this last night. And we were talking about the difference between my definition of networking and how they viewed networking. So, to me, networking is something that is done either through a professional or a personal relationship where there is knowledge sharing being done between two individuals. Now, the conversation that I was having with someone else was, does this have to be for personal gain? And I don't think that networking has to be done for a personal. I don't think everyone has an agenda when it goes to networking. Some people truly just want to get to know someone in a different industry, or they just may want to chat with somebody. But I think networking is all in, being able to share resources, information, or opportunities with other individuals in a way that is fruitful. So a lot
I
of things
love that.
can be networking.
I absolutely think a lot of things can be networking. When I was talking to students, when I worked at San Jose State and UC Santa Cruz, I had already had to network as I moved cross country. But what I used to articulate networking as was, I know your family, has a plumber that you all use all the time or a mechanic. If your cousin needed to know who fixed your car at one time, oh, it's a homeboy down the street. That's
Right.
networking. They are putting themselves in the middle to merge two parties, and then at that point they remove themselves, and then they continue to do the work. I think that was the simplest way I can explain networking to students who are very insecure about talking to new people. Sometimes they're
Mm,
freshmen, sometimes they're moving from a different place and they don't know how to, dive in. And I think networking is such a big, broad word that you kind of hear all the time, but you don't really know what to do with it. With that said, what was your first experience in strategically networking and really using networking in a professional sense?
this is a good question. Let me think. Honestly, it probably would have to be going back to high school if
Hmm.
I'm thinking about it from a while back. So I just recall that my friend and I wanted to start an organization. And my friend was a little bit more plugged in than me. Like she had connections with a lot of the teachers at the school, a lot of the administration. And so through her, I was introduced to some teachers
Hmm.
who I'm still in contact with today. So I think that's that was my first intro into networking. And she also just introduced me to a whole bunch of other administrators who were able to play a pivotal role in my, matriculation out of high school. So I think that was my first thing where I'm like, wow, people are really tapped in. People really have such a broad community to which they can share that community with me. So that was my first experience.
I like that because that's gonna take me somewhere that I wanted to go, which is if you have a goal, right? You were building a organization, so you needed a lot of support in order
Hmm.
to build that thing. You use community, you use culture in order to use that person's network in order to build yours. I think that the thing that we, as speaking to our audience, one of the best things that we can do in terms of networking is using our culture as a through line. Meaning, when you are in a space where you need to get something accomplished, oftentimes the first people you go to are friends,
Mm,
colleagues. And the thing about that relationship is that you all have something in common. Trying to use something to rub off that's culturally relevant, because I think that's the best way to like ride the wave of networking
mm,
without having to be transactional, because that's what you want to avoid, that
right.
transaction, right? So I think that what you mentioned is really trying to strategically connect with someone, not authentically connect with someone who can help you make this to get this goal accomplished while not making it feel like icky.
Okay, so let's talk about that icky thing. Because again, this goes back to the conversation that I was having yesterday. One of my friends said that they don't network on purpose. Like when we say network on purpose, they don't go to networking events or
Hmm.
conferences because they believe that it is icky and that often people who are attending these events have an ulterior motive. So what is your, perception or your opinion on that? Because me and him went back and forth a couple times regarding this.
I mean, lie to me. If you're
Travarus.
listen to me, if you because I think that there are people who are more genuinely able to have conversations and then not come off a certain way, even if they're using it in a way that is not authentic. It may not come off their way.
Mm,
They're lying to us, right? We talked about this in another episode where people go to the spot just to meet people. They don't care about nothing else except for meeting people. Those people, stay away from me because you're like a leech. Like
mm.
you don't want to absorb the environment. You don't want to talk to anybody if they're not in your industry. And that feels transactional. That feels like not okay. But in your sense, if you're talking to somebody about the differences between showing up authentically 100% or this person has the motive going in there, as long as they're masking it properly, it'll work. Is that my method? No, hell no. I would much rather go in there open minded. Let's say that you invited me to an event at Apple. You work at Apple. My hope is just to rub elbows and connect with people who work there. But there are some people like, I want to be a product manager on this team, and they go balls to the wall to
Yeah.
that one person. That ain't gonna work, champ. Like you gotta find a way to slow walk it, even if you have a certain direction.
And that's what I was kind of communicating. I don't think everyone who comes into a networking situation has an ulterior motive. For example, I was using myself as an example. Oftentimes, when I go to network, I'm truly just going to meet people, whether they're in
Yeah.
my industry or not. Like, I'm just going to have good conversations so that I can learn from another person. I'm not trying to, do this or do that. I'm truly going because I want to share knowledge or gain knowledge. And I mean, I guess that's, I don't think that's an ulterior motive. I think that's a
It's not.
goal.
That's the reason why people network. Let's be
Right.
honest. Nobody's networking just to get as many contacts in their phone as possible.
No.
No, you're networking with the hopes that this person can help you accomplish a goal. The thing that I think makes it an ulterior motive is some people want that goal to be accomplished today.
Mm,
Whereas, right, whereas other people will allow for this to unfold, and that's the space where people are like, what, you're a little bit too eager. You're a bit too eager, and when you come off too eager, I'm not on your timeline, bro. Like,
right.
you are trying to solicit something from me,
Yeah.
right? I can't adjust to your timeline, but if you are patient and you want to continue to build a relationship, and then I can be more invested in you, and then see that I can probably help out with this. That is a more organic, and that might only take 3 weeks.
You know what? Let's talk about that because
Go ahead.
okay. So since me starting my LinkedIn journey, this is one of the things that I've experienced on a truly on a daily basis. Like people sliding in my DM saying, "Hi, I am so and so. Can you get me this job?" Or, "Hi, I'm so and so. Never met this person in my life. Can you refer me to this job?" Recently, I've had people not even asking for referrals like firsthand. They are using my email to give themselves referrals and then trying
Oh,
to like
yep,
finding my email, me not giving it
yep,
to them, and then
yep.
coming in the back end and then trying to introduce themselves. Y'all, for the love of goodness, that is not networking.
It's
And
not gonna
asking
work.
someone directly to do something for you before even getting to know them on just the bare basis level of who am I, that's not networking.
That's not networking at all. And I often relate things to dating because whenever there's one human to another, it is a relationship in some way, shape, or form.
That is a big thing that I've been seeing. And that's also a big thing that I'm gonna talk about myself a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. I am not one. So my issue is when I go places, I normally have great conversations with people. And this is not me like wanting to get anything from them. It's like I see you, we chatting it up. I think
Mhm.
my biggest pitfall right now is the follow up. I will
For
have
you, meaning
for
like
me.
you don't follow up.
I do not follow up as much as
Got it.
I should. So I will have like a great conversation with someone who I meet in person. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this was so great. Like we should definitely talk again after this." And they're like, "Yeah, here's my phone number." And then we exchange phone numbers and we do our little chat. And then I never see nor hear from them again. And so I also don't follow up. So it's just like a lost, network potential,
Yeah.
even though it was such a great initial conversation. And I got to work on that real bad.
I mean, for you to be type A, I think there's a simple solution. Put them on the calendar.
That's true.
And now, for those of you who are not familiar with networking, you may ask yourself, does that feel wrong? No. When life happens, you have to schedule a lot of things that you didn't ever
Life
thought you
be
had to
happening
schedule
too.
for, right?
It be happening.
And you how many times have you all thought 3 weeks ago was the other day? How many you right when you like the other day, like, nah,
It
that
was a
was
month
a
ago.
month ago. Yeah. So sometimes you have those really foundational, dope conversations. Put 2 weeks out and just
Mm.
schedule a little text. Or you can nowadays you can schedule texts.
You can't schedule. I need to start. I got to do that
You
because
know what I mean?
yeah,
Because what that can do is just because you want people to think you want people to be top of mind, but sometimes our time doesn't allow for that to happen.
right.
And before this whole scheduled text vibe, I used to have all these ideas of like, oh, so and so's birthday is coming up. I know I'm going to forget. I know I'm going to forget. Now I can just,
Mm,
you know, what I mean, put the little, whenever I think about it, just schedule the text, and whenever it happens, it can just send on my behalf. But it's a game changer. But for you to be type A, I think when you have a really great convo, just put in your calendar for 2 weeks out, and then just schedule a little text to go out or an email
I need to do that.
and
Okay.
remind yourself to circle back.
That was a great tip, Travaris. Thank you for that. And I want to go move to something that's kind of in the same realm of networking or like,
Mhm.
networking in the age of hybrid work in virtual platforms. So, you're a millennial.
I am.
You've been on both sides of the aisle. So, how have you seen networking evolve since, the pandemic and all of this stuff or since you started working versus now? What does that look like?
So right before I got into tech, it was hand to hand. It was you in person. You have to go to these events, shake hands, really get to these tables, really talk to people. It was nerve wracking. And at that point,
I bet.
I was 30 plus. I was
Dog,
yeah, I
stop.
was no, shut stop. So I wasn't, but I had to, like we talked about going and reaching people at Afrotech. I had to really go out there and get it. I had to drive intentionally to these places with the hopes of getting a contact that I can follow up with. And I was hungry. I was really trying to ensure that I made it into the tech space. If I was to crack into tech this, like in this space, like in 2024, 2023, it would be a little different. Now you have to be a way more persistent online than you would if I was meeting somebody in person because I can reference that in the email. We met at this place. But it's way different now on the other side of COVID because I feel like almost all networking exclusively happens online. There aren't many
Mm,
spaces of intention to be able to chat on a given topic. Now you can do that via Zoom or Teams, and it's not as and you reduce costs that way. Like it's more way more advantages to the organizer to not have an in person space, but it is detrimental to those who want to network because it's way easier to stand out in person than it is to stand out in a chat room
mm,
or a Zoom room or a team space. But so I would say some would think it may be easier to maneuver virtually. I think there's some advantage. You can cover more ground, but
right.
I think it's easier to be less memorable virtually when you're networking.
So let me ask this. So let's say it's, I don't know, 2005. Maybe let's go
Sheesh.
like 2002. It's
Jeez.
2002. You go
Mm-hmm.
to a networking event, you meet so and so, and you're like, dog, this is a really great professional connection. How
Yep.
did you follow up with this individual? If let's say you met them in, I don't know, you met them in Atlanta, but you live in California. How did you make
Mm.
sure you kept that relationship up to date?
For the record, I was 16 in 2002.
Okay,
Just
you
want the
ooh,
record to
sorry.
show.
Sorry. I thought you
See?
okay.
See?
Let's ooh. Okay, you
But
was
the
that
answer is the
young in
same.
2002? Okay.
The answer is the same, though.
Okay, let's go. Let's go there.
Actually, I was 15, depending on what
Okay,
time.
well maybe let's say 2008. Is that better?
2008, that's when I graduated college. It's the
Okay.
same answer. It would be email. Email was the name of the
Mm,
game. So you would get somebody's email and you would make sure to follow up with them based on whatever y'all talked about. I'll make it more personal because I learned, here's where I learned my networking faux pas. Have we mentioned a few times on this podcast? I remember Cap Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. One of the main reasons I joined Cap Alpha Psi is to network. I didn't know what it meant though. So,
mm,
and when I say that, I mean, when I graduated college, it was my assumption. Nobody made me feel this way. It was my assumption that when I graduate, you'll help me get a job, alumni. What else are you doing here, right? All wrong. I sent emails to our alumni. Yo, I've graduated. Here's my resume. Let's get cooking. And they were like, boy, what do you want me to do with this?
please.
And I learned the hard way. I don't know these men. We share a commonality, but I don't know them. I hadn't
Right.
taken the time to nurture and build a relationship with them. After they smacked my wrist, we began to build a relationship, and I began to realize I don't want to do what he does. I don't want to do what he does. And I also wasn't specific. I was looking for a job, not a first step in my career.
Mm.
So I was so green and like, but to say that to answer your question, though in those days all they had was email. People was even hesitant to give their phone numbers unless we really connected. It would be email.
This is quite interesting. So you would have to go back and forth with a person on email until you saw them again, unless you called them on the phone.
Yeah, I would think that. Yeah, but that was pretty standard because we're not
Mhm.
friends, right? Like
Right.
I think now
That's a good
there's a
point. That's a good
conflict.
point.
There's a conflating of
Mm.
friendships, professional relationships, and same thing we talked about with work friends. That we're not work friends. It's so easy to get somebody's contact info now that you feel they're more accessible. Email
Mm.
provided a gate. Like
Right.
you can't if you contact me, you can email me. I might not respond for 2 or 3 days. And it's well within my right because we're not friends. So email provided that gate
Mm,
of I'm gonna get to you when I'm ready. Versus we have an air of immediacy now where we think that people are hitting us up in DMs, both social and professional. They're and like when we're at work, they're slacking us. They're emailing us too, and you don't feel like you can let an email breathe for 2 days. Now you feel like you got to respond
you
to it
gotta respond.
immediately because of our culture now. Everything's moving so fast. So
Right.
I think that it's changed, you know, depending on if you think for the better or it's a bit more nerve wracking if you're the networker. People want more of you
Mm.
immediately versus the other way around.
That makes a lot of sense. And I to the what you said about things being immediate. I'm definitely feeling that, as in I feel like people always want me to respond
Yep.
within like a day or two. And I'm like, "Dog, can I get 3 like can I get 3 days?" And this is not like at work. At work, I'm gonna respond immediate. That's just that's a whole nother conversation. But I feel like outside of work, like in my professional adjacent life, and
Mm-hmm.
what I do with my own personal brand, people are always expecting me to respond immediately. And when I don't respond immediately, people are like hounding me and
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like, we establish just a common relationship first before
Right.
you
Got
I
some
don't even
ground
know.
rules before you start blowing me up. What we doing?
Yeah, I'm like, I understand, if I haven't responded in a week, definitely hit me again. But like if
Yeah.
it's only been a day or two, I might just be offline.
Facts. But people don't. Now here's the bridge between Gen Z and millennials. You have a more millennial mindset when it comes to that because you have had the opportunities to be in corporate, big corporate for a little
Yeah.
while. So you understand there's a line between personal and professional. If you were not at a company, like I said, you were trying to get into our company and you met somebody that works at our company, you might be a little bit more anxious.
This is true. The
So
anxiety does play a part.
so I understand. I empathize with those people, but it's still annoying. I can understand why you're doing it and still be like, can you stop doing that? Because
That's true.
it turns me off. Like,
Mm,
and maybe this is a wild. I'm good for one wild analogy per episode, but
you are.
I am. So I used to think that celebrities who didn't talk to fans were like rude until you hear them talk and you're like, some people are like, yo, my whole day is spent by fans trying to get to me.
Right.
I may allow one at 4 o'clock. I might have allowed that 4 to 5 space where it's like, you know what, let's chat. But you might see me at 6 to 7, and you may think that, oh, he's an asshole. You didn't know. I am on all the time,
Yeah.
and people don't get a chance to see when I let other people in. So you only see that your interaction with me, and we're not giving people grace. So as someone now who I give people at arm's length, I want you to act like you've been here before, even though that's not fair.
Mhm.
But I don't want you to invade my space being super anxious. I don't owe you anything.
And that's the big thing. I think in networking, this just goes back to what we mentioned. No one owes the other anything.
Not
At least
anything.
at least not in the beginning. Like this truly should be about building a genuine connection, and this is what I
Mm-hmm.
often communicate to students. Like if you are truly looking for an internship, a job, an in to a company, you have to build genuine, like truly genuine relationships with the people there. Or like you said, a
Facts.
one-off conversation or a random, message to someone saying, "Here's my resume," is unfortunately not going to help you at the end of the day. If you want a job somewhere, you need to start talking to those people at least a month in advance of you applying, because at least that way they can get to know you and who you are versus you being another person that just slid in the DMs.
And yeah, I think that off to a great point. But if I was listening to this pod, I would ask myself, okay, y'all talked about what to do. I mean, what not to do. We talked about how to better be declare your intentions in terms of being a mentee. But how do you build a network? So let's
Mm.
spend some time trying to figure out, trying to explain to folks how to build a network. The first thing that I'll say, then I'll kick it over to you, Taylor, which is remember, networking is not transactional. It is a collaborative model.
Mm.
It does not work without the other person. Otherwise, you're just dancing alone. You just, like you're talking to yourself. It has to be agreed upon that we are in this space networking. If you're talking to me and I don't intend to talk to you ever again, that is not networking.
It's true.
We're talking. We're talking. So, what do you think, Taylor, in your experience, is one of the first pivotal things needed in order to build a network?
So I think the first thing is one thing you've already mentioned, like what is the goal of building your network? What are you trying to get out of this? Is it a job? Is it more connections? Is it, knowledge sharing with people in your industry? What is the goal of you building your network? Because I feel like if you can define that, then that will help you as you select who you network with. I think it's all in defining what are the goals of your intention or setting your intentions.
Can I say I wanted to add on to that one?
Hmm.
That is doing the work on your own before you go outside, right?
Yes,
That
research.
is you sitting with yourself. What do I want to do with this? Why do I want to talk to this person at Apple? What can they do for me? And let's say that you do meet somebody that has the role that you want. How do you what is it what is the opening statement? Do
Mm,
you have your elevator pitch? Do you have what is how do you get this thing going? So I love the fact that number one, before you even go outside, what are we doing? what do,
set the
what
intention.
are we doing? What do you think is next after you decide? All right, I want to be a product manager at Apple. That is my goal. I have my why. I understand why. What's next?
I think it's finding the people who you need to network with. But again, I think this goes back to our original point of not being like all icky and weird about it.
Right.
You can still be authentic in this way. You can be strategic and authentic. So you're not just
Mm-hmm.
only walking up to product managers and solely talking to them or solely like seeking out this one person because that's a little weird at times.
It is. It
But
is.
it's all in, figuring out where can you meet these people in mass. So where
Yep.
can you have the most genuine conversations, whether that's at Afrotech or whether that's at DC Tech Week or wherever
Mm-hmm.
the case may be. I think it's all in finding places where if you're not meeting the people maybe directly at the company, at least you can connect with someone who makes know someone at the company. So being clear in where you need to go in order to have the most fruitful networking conversations. Because a conversation that you have, at the bar is going to be different than a conversation you may have at the conference. So where are these people at?
And so I'm hearing being making sure it's in appropriate space
Hmm.
and hitting the road, going to a place where these people will be. So this is another high level networking tip, which is it may take a little bit of money to invest in yourself in order to meet the people where they are. Now, doing this virtually could work, but you have
Good.
to pound the pavement a little bit more in order to be more successful. You have to be okay with a lot more no's than yeses because that's the name of the game. If it's easy for me to just type to somebody in Australia or type to somebody in Denmark, or it's going to be easy for them to tell me no as well because or not respond. But it's a bit harder to if you've rehearsed, if you are solid in your why, it's a bit harder for somebody in person to tell you no without hearing your story and being like, like it's easy to dismiss people online. It's a little harder to do that in person. So yeah, sometimes you got to hit the road, and it may take a little bit of money in order for you to do that. And not a lot. I'm not talking about you travel to Australia or Denmark. It may just be a state away. You might have to gas up your car and drive to that event, but it's well worth it.
Mhm.
Um, I think the next thing after you pound this pavement, I think we've already discussed this, but not specifically. How do you articulate the reasons why you want to talk to this person.
Yes.
The articulation of your ideas need to be not self-serving. It needs to be collaborative. You have to wonder, this person may be asking, well, what's in it for me? What do I get from networking with you? Now, everybody thinks that way, but you have to be prepared for that. Meaning, if we are looking to be a product manager at Apple, it's a few things that come in play. I got to verify if you're good.
Mm.
Are you personable? Can I send you somewhere to talk to somebody? You're not going to embarrass me as a contact. But not only that, are you good at the job? Will you interview well? All that stuff has. This is why that 3 week period of like getting to know somebody, you get a good sense for. Oh, okay, they're fine. So when you get into this space, you have to be able to, like I said, you're on the road. You see the product manager. You want to talk to them. The conversation is going great, but you have to involve in your conversation what you can do for this person. And you may think that it's this grand thing. Like, no, you can easily mention, I want to learn from you, and I want to be able to, you know, figure out how I can best support you as well. There are things that I'm into that you would like to partake in, or whatever. It's so many things that somebody can be inspired by you as well. Just because they have a job that you want doesn't mean that you don't have something that they want as well. And
True.
finding that thing is really important. So it has to be what's in it for them. Oftentimes, they might get a bonus for referring you if you're good,
Mm. Yeah.
right? But you don't say, what you could get is, a cool little bonus if you get me hired. Don't say that. But
No.
there are things that you have to determine in terms of what that person will get from connecting with you as well.
For sure, 100%. And I think people don't do that enough. People go and ask for something and expect it to be given to them without offering the person they're asking anything else additionally. And again, I think that goes back to the point of people having these weird ulterior motives without trying to genuinely network. So yeah, be genuine, y'all, and ask what is in it for the other person for real.
And when it comes to a man and a woman networking,
Oh,
fellas, fellas, keep it professional
please,
or keep it personal.
please make the delineation because people be
Do
I be confused.
don't
I don't know about
blend the
everybody else.
two.
Yeah.
Don't make anyone feel that they're under the guise of one and you just switch gears out of nowhere. Like, declare your intentions and be very consistent in that, because you'll lose all credibility if you go in to want to really network with her and then you find her to be attractive. Bro, keep it to yourself.
Oh, I have many stories about that one.
Keep it to yourself.
So
Maybe, I
many.
mean, I get it. You get your hair done every month, so maybe they think they're meeting a whole new woman.
Maybe so. Maybe they think brand new girl. I'm like same person I was last month, just with a
We
different
did this
color.
before, sir. Oh, snap. I didn't
Oh
even
yeah,
know.
don't
Damn, my
even
bad.
can't even remember you. Probably because they was doing the same thing to 50 other folks. But anyway.
That's a whole other story. So we gave him 3 tips in terms of how to build the network. Let's have a case study now,
Mm,
right? Let's take it to the super max. Let's take it to the expert level
okay.
of networking. Let's say that you get a job somewhere that is not your home base.
Mm,
You have an incredible network where you were, and you were going to this new place, and you start net new with nobody that you even know in the city, nobody in the state. Let's help these people build a network from the ground up.
yeah.
All right, you move. You got everything's in your apartment. Everything's set up. Wi-Fi is good. All right. What do I do next? What's the first thing that I do? What do I do now?
Number one, I have so many answers to this. But number one, I would say if you are one who is a little timid when it comes to making connections yourself, you can reach out to people who you already know, whether that's from back home or from elsewhere, to see if they can recommend anyone for you to connect with. So that's one of the
Okay.
things that I did originally when I moved to the DMV is there were so many people like that lived in Alabama where I'm from that knew people in the DMV. So thus I had at least a couple of connections to start with. So just to
And
give
the
me a
people that you
starting point.
have, you don't even know the people.
Right. I don't know the people. They know someone
Right.
who I know. And thus, again, as you mentioned before, having that middleman that's able to bridge
Mm-hmm.
the gap. So using your middleman to bridge the gap to someone who is in the area in which you currently reside. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's huge. The second one, now this is the one that I've taken and I've just run with it. I've been running with this one for a while. It's just putting yourself out there and going to places alone. Now,
Yep.
it's scary, y'all. I ain't gonna lie. I ain't gonna cap. I'm not gonna sit up here and be like, oh, I walked into the event and I was just like, wow, hello. Because it's not like that. Like you
Or I walked in and I worked the room. I was killing them. No, you wasn't.
Yeah, no, you have to have a type of different, like innate confidence to be able to walk into a room of hundreds of people and be by yourself and make connections. But that's one thing that I had to force myself to do. Even as an introvert, I was going on Eventbrite, I was going on Posh.vip, I was going on all these various places and finding different events where I could meet new people. So I just think like put yourself out there, look on Eventbrite, look on their various calendars. I mean, some different areas have different weeks. So, like for example, this week is DC Tech Week. So I know
Mm,
I can go to the event at LinkedIn on Tuesday, and I know I can go to the event at Google on Wednesday, and I'll meet people. And I'm going to
right.
go to those events by myself. So just got to put
Mm.
yourself out there for sure. You got a tip, Travaris?
I do. I was going to stay on your second one, which
Okay.
is going somewhere by yourself. And man, so I also moved to a location where I knew no one. So the difference between you and me is that you knew some people that knew some people. I didn't know anyone. Nobody that I
Mm,
knew anybody from Jersey to California. But my first step was your number two, which is gotta put yourself out there. Gotta be open and willing to receive things that are maybe outside of what you would have enjoyed before. I mentioned this on the pod before. When I moved to California, I had a rule for the first 30 days I could not say no, unless it was drugs or something and I was
oh, yeah, say
against
no to.
morally.
Hmm.
Yeah, gotta say no to that. But if it was an adventure that I would have said no to in New Jersey, I have to at least give it a shot. And I would say that what it did was just it made me more willing to learn different things in different places. Because none of the people that I was meeting in the first 30 days were black. None of them. And I live a very black life. Extremely black life. And and even then, all my friends, most of my friends were black. The spaces that I occupy were black. So I didn't have anything against anybody. It just so happened that's how it was. But in being in California for those first 30 days, it was a chance to be able to say, oh, okay, I understand this. I'm talking about going to different clubs and doing different activities on the weekend, whatever. And I was okay. What that did for me was, like I mentioned, it just allowed me to be more accepting of things that I didn't understand at first, and that led to more intentional networking when I started the job. I began to
Mm,
meet people. I was already open. So if I'm open and I meet my people, it feels better because my net is wide, but the people who I really want to talk to are coming inside that net as well. So that is really what springboarded me to be able to find my people. And I worked at a university. So the interesting thing about that experience was there were more black students that I connected with than black
mm,
administrators. But it's a very fine line about how you communicate with these black students because you're the administrator and they're a student.
right.
What I found was a commonality for us is basketball. I hoop with them. I get a chance to get some of that culture that I so deserved and need, not deserved, so yearned for. But also, I created spaces for them to want to talk to me about what they're going through so I can help them. So
Mm,
I would say also be open to alternative methods of connection. You have to be ready to just ready for anything. If you open yourself up to networking, I feel like your manifestation book is just wide.
I agree. And I
And
think
whatever comes in there, you have to be ready for it to get ready to receive that.
true. And you hit on something that I think is also important. And we talked about this in another episode briefly. But I think if you are one who is also timid,
Hmm.
finding places of connection with people who have commonalities with
Yep.
you is
Yep.
so important. So if it is, going to an HBCU event where there will be other HBCU graduates, if it is going to another event that is hosted by an organization that is specifically for the Hispanic Latinx community, like the list goes on. But
Yep.
you finding places where there are commonalities that can really ease the pressure and take it down a notch when it comes to talking to new people. So a lot of the events I go to are like for people who are black in tech.
Hmm. Hmm.
That just makes sense
Right.
regarding who I am and what I do. And so I'm able to build genuine connections with people that look like me, who work in the same industry, who I can truly learn from in a way that is not so like hostile and scary for
Yeah.
me, especially as such a professional who is so early in her career.
And this makes me think about like my actual experiences when I moved to a new town. I lived in a few, not just in California, but in Jersey. The first place I go to or had gone to when I moved to a space is a basketball court.
Mm,
Literally, like it always is, and it's not on purpose. It's but looking back, this is always where I found at least the first degree of person that leads me to more people. Because in California, I found I was on the basketball court, just not knowing anybody, just shooting around. You meet people. Those people that you meet may want you to play more with them. Then you go to another body of people who are playing. Then you end up in the league that's more formalized. Like there's a time schedule. You have to really now you're communicating on the level where I'm like, oh, all right, we're invested now. And when you get to these leagues, you meet people on different teams. So it really starts from like me just wanting to shoot around, and then I keep going. I meet more people. I see people a couple of times, and you're just like, "Oh, what's going on? What's your name?" And that's really how it goes. And so basketball has always been a place where I start connection, and I didn't really think about that until just now.
mm.
But I
Look at
think we
that.
all have these places where your barbershop, beauty salon,
Mm,
getting your nails
true.
done, where you see these people often, and I can't speak for other ethnicities, but I can speak for Black people. You can have a whole relationship with somebody, not even know their name.
Facts. I had to learn the girl who does my braids. I had to ask for her name. I
And
did.
how long has she been doing your braids?
Not too long, like,
Okay,
since the beginning of the year, but by the
that's
middle
a
of the
year.
year, I was like, "Okay, I need to know sis' name because I need to make sure that I'm rebooking with the right person." Like, and I'm talking to her, and I don't
Hmm.
even know her name. So
It
now I know
happens
her
so
name.
often. It happens so often where I'm not sure if anybody has seen this. It's like an Instagram or TikTok video where it's like two men walking past each other, and it's like, "What's going on, yo?" The next time it's like, "Yo, I like your Jordans." Like, "Oh, I like your Jordans." The next time it's like, "Yo, what's trying to hang out?" And that's sometimes that's how men make relationships. It's like we're in the same place.
Mhm.
I see you, you see me. The second time is, oh, you got something that I like. We got something in common. The third time is like, let's trying to go for a drink. And sometimes it's that easy, but I guarantee you they don't know each other's names. They
True.
don't, right?
Yeah.
The name exchange happens later. I think when you get somebody's name, it's more serious. Like, what's your name, bro? Like that's when you really like, let's build.
And you hit on something too that also will say, and again, we mentioned this before, but I'm gonna just restate it here. Freaking clothes are such a good way to start a conversation. So for
Facts.
people on here who truly are like, I don't know how to start a conversation, talk about someone's outfit. Like, girl, that skirt, fire. Where'd you get it from? Or, ooh, your nails. Who is your nail tech? Did you do them yourself? Are those press?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can have a whole conversation about that. So I would always say dress to impress. And if you're not one who's like a big dresser, if you see someone else that has on something that's fire, be like, ma'am, your bob is fine. Like you, whatever it is, tell them that it's cute.
Because I guarantee you, I can't guarantee, but I am sure somebody didn't tell them how fire the outfit was today,
Hmm. Today.
right? So some people, confidence also repels people in a
Hmm.
sense. Sometimes if you're too confident, people feel like you don't need compliments because I'm sure that you already got it. But if you are being strategic in your networking and you are at a place like Afrotech, you are at a place where there's a big demographic or people that had some of the same goals, using close as the conversation starter is brilliant because people all they put effort into what they put on, so they want to
Mhm.
let's appreciate it. And now I'm open. Now you told me that my sneakers is fire, my shoes is dope. What's good? What you want? Like
And
what
I'll
you
be like,
what
hey,
you
yeah,
want to
like,
talk
I'll talk to
about?
you, girl. Like, yeah, and it all doesn't have to be clothes. It can be accessories. It could be hair,
Anything,
lashes, nail, like
purse,
whatever.
backpack,
Yeah, your hat.
whatever.
It goes on. The watch, whatever. But that is a great way to start a conversation
It
for
is
sure.
it's a beautiful thing when you and then people because sometimes they're greeted with the smile and you feel like yeah that was I appreciated that so yeah. Also, if you're listening to this and you're just like they didn't talk about LinkedIn at all, that's because we're going to do a whole episode about LinkedIn. It's way too deep to get into
Yeah,
to lump LinkedIn into just networking. Period. We wanted to ensure that you knew some of the foundational basics of how to begin to connect with people, and LinkedIn builds into that, but that is a whole nother dynamic. It's a whole nother muscle that is
mhm,
required in order to do that. So soon come on the LinkedIn front.
for sure.
Taylor, do you have any tips to share with us today?
I do have a tip, and I think we kind of already hit on it, so I'll just reiterate it one more time. But yap with intention.
Mm,
Like, truly, when you are starting a conversation with someone, it is so important to be intentional in the questions that you ask and what you say based on what you are trying to get out of the conversation. So, again, I think it goes back to what we were saying about setting goals and making sure that those goals are aligned with what you need to get out of your networking situation, but truly be intentional. So, for example, when I was in my internship, I was intentional about who I was connecting with. I wasn't only connecting with people on my team or people in my function. I was connecting with people across the business because my intention was to understand how this tech company worked holistically. So therefore, I needed to connect with the software engineers, with the designers, with the people doing the security, with all the people doing like the government relations. I needed to have this type of insight into all of those various things in order to understand how my role, whether how small or big it was, how it ladders up into the global mission of this giant tech company. So that was my intention, and so therefore I was able to be strategic about who I was meeting and connecting with. So always, always, always yap with intention. And y'all, just it doesn't have to be someone who is entry level or like
no,
one role above you. Reach out to people who are executives. 9 times out of 10, believe it or not, they can give you 10 to 15 minutes. Now, again, then the part of the intention is you got to be intentional with those 10 to 15 minutes, but that will set you apart so much compared to other people who maybe are not doing the same thing. So, intentionality, y'all, that's where it's at. For
I
sure.
love that.
Now, we have a question about some concise advice, Travaris. So,
Okay.
someone has asked that, they've been networking with people, but they don't feel like they are memorable. And so they're
Mm.
looking for tips on how they can become more memorable after meeting someone. Should they say something in their conversation? Should they follow up in a certain way? Like, how do you think that works? Because I think you're very memorable.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I would say two different methods. If it's virtual or if it's in person, I'm going to take
Mhm.
the in person one first. If it's in person, I really think that you have to. What's memorable about communicating with this person is where you met them, first of all. Uh, and I think that when you're talking to somebody in person, sometimes it may feel nerve wracking because you're like, oh, snap, like I'm thinking a mile a minute. But I think what's really important is for you to begin to drop seeds of yourself. Like
Mhm.
what is something that you want this person to know about you? It should be one thing. Just it could be one thing. If you all found that you went to the same college or you all are part of the same organization or something that you all have in common, I think that's really important for you to reference. If it's online, I think you can get real creative. you can really begin to use the power of AI to think about how you can craft messages based on what this person has done. So you can ask ChatGPT, I want to communicate with this product manager who works at Apple. I got their contact information. What's the best way for me to approach this conversation? And in there, you still have to invoke your humanity, but what's really important is that you show up as you, not
Mm.
what you think they would want from you. You have to show up as you. The one that I have the most experience with is being in person, and I think charisma, yo. I guess everybody doesn't have it, right? I want to be
No.
very clear. Everybody isn't charismatic, and I want to be very clear about that. But finding something that you are in that conversation that you can pull out, even if you remember something that they said that you can reference in the follow up, is really important because sometimes when I talk to somebody, I'm like, damn, I told him that. I don't even know why I told him that. And if you could reference that again, it's just like, whoa, like, yeah, you remembered me. I also think what make you be memorable is on the first time that you meet somebody and you follow up within like a week with questions,
Mm.
right? So if I got your contact information, Taylor, I met you at Afrotech, connected with you. I'm like, yo, I really admire what you're doing on LinkedIn. I think that it's amazing. You mind if I stay connected to you? You're just like, yeah, come on, like let's do the thing, and we're connected on LinkedIn. If I follow up in a week, and I was just like, yo, I've been pondering on what you thought, what you said to me. I really think that this was really beneficial. I've implemented this so far. Then I ask you, now that I've done this, do you have any advice for me in terms of what I can do next? But what I did was I communicated I enjoyed talking to you. I also communicated to you that I took your advice. I also communicated I implemented your advice, and I'm asking you for more. I'm more inclined to respond to that because you're taking action. So you should also be memorable by taking action and asking questions and following up. So I think that is if you're not inherently charismatic, but if you are charismatic, really ride the conversation and make it real conversational. Don't make it stuffy. Like make it,
Mm.
if there's an opportunity to make a little witty comment, a professional one, do that. Find ways to bring what you have to the table. If there's any kind of spaces to relate, it's all about that connection. So this was not concise because there's so much to talk about in this space. But I think that you have to listen actively and find ways that you fill in those gaps, circle back, and hopefully that person will remember you.
Heavy on the listening actively. That's something that I'm also working on because I'm always listening to respond. And that is not a good thing in networking, y'all. You have to be listening actively so that you get what you're supposed to get from the conversation. So I love that part.
So, do you think that we adequately elaborated on how people can network both strategically and move to a new geographic location?
I think we have, and I'm excited for our part two that will be specifically about LinkedIn networking and just what LinkedIn looks like overall. But as for this conversation, I do think we elaborated effectively and efficiently.
I think um, this was a great bridge between Gen Z and millennials because we have learned to network differently,
Right.
and I think hopefully both populations will be able to take something from this. So, with that said, thank y'all for listening, and we'll check y'all out next time.